can find your seat and we'll get started here. Good morning. This is the June 14th, 2017 meeting of the Monterey County Planning Commission. Welcome. Mr. Deal, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Jackie.
Good morning. Commissioner Ombreeze? Absent. Commissioner Deal?
Here.
Commissioner Duflock?
Here.
Commissioner Getzelman? Absent.
Oh, he's here.
Yeah, he's in the back.
You can
Wait, when you can say...
wait now, he's not answering to the roll call, but as soon as he comes in the door, we can let the record reflect that he's here.
Okay. Commissioner Hurt?
Here.
And let the record reflect that Commissioner Getzelman has made it to the dais. Commissioner Mendez?
Here.
Commissioner Padilla?
Here.
Commissioner Roberts? Absent. Commissioner Rochester?
Here.
And Commissioner Vanderveer? Absent. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Brings us to the time of public comment. Anybody have anything they'd like to speak about this morning that's not on the agenda for today? Seeing none. Agenda additions, deletions, and corrections, Jackie.
I would like to note for the record that there are two documents distributed on the dais this morning. One is for agenda item number 2 for PLN 150133 for the Larson project. Another is a packet of correspondence for agenda item number 3, PLN 160803 for Big Sur Canna-Botanicals.
Thank you. Commissioners' comments. Any? Seeing none. Takes us right into our first scheduled matter. Item number 1, PLN 170064, Smythe. Staff, when you're ready, go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Rochester and Commissioners. My name is Cheryl Koo. With me is Brandon Swanson, Planning Services Manager. The item before you is PLN 170064, Smythe. The item before you is a combined development permit consisting of an administrative permit and a design approval for a new single-family dwelling with attached garage, an administrative permit and design approval for a detached guest house with an attached shed, and a use permit for the removal of 26 Coast Live Oak trees. This project is located at 8 Goodrich Trail in Rancho San Carlos. The Potrero subdivision, also referred to as Phase E of Rancho San Carlos. It is within the Carmel Valley Area Plan. The parcel is zoned rural grazing, 10 acres per unit with design and site plan overlays. Like all lots within Rancho San Carlos, Lot E18 has a designated homeland boundary to indicate where development should occur. The remainder of the parcel is permanently dedicated in a conservation easement. The homeland boundary of Lot E18 is densely forested throughout with oak woodland. The Planning Commission has reviewed development on this lot in the past. in 2009, a permit for residential development was approved along with the removal of 28 oak trees. However, that project was never built. This is a new permit with new entitlements. The home was sited on the flattest portion of this site in an area with a small natural clearing. The location was chosen to preserve the healthiest trees on the site and to provide screening from the road and from neighboring properties, as is a priority in Rancho San Carlos. Within this homeland boundary is a densely forested oak woodland, so using the existing natural clearing and prioritizing the healthiest trees to preserve, we still require the removal of 26 oak trees to be removed to accommodate the structures. Of these, 10 of the trees are in poor condition and 16 are in fair condition. The arborist report explained that the overcrowding conditions on the site had compromised the health of many of the trees. The design is also intended to reduce any encroachment on critical root zones of existing trees and to be nestled into the natural landscape while using the remaining trees for screening. This design was approved by the Santa Lucia Preserve Review Board, and the Carmel Valley Land Use Advisory Committee has recommended approval. Tree removal is handled uniquely in the Potrero subdivision. When Potrero was approved, a forest management plan was prepared in the year 2000. It included an inventory of trees within the homeland boundaries of each lot. 56 trees were inventoried on Lot E18, just within the homeland boundary. Now, in contrast, the tree resource assessment prepared for the property in preparation for this project estimated a total of 221 trees growing within the homeland boundary. So it is a very heavily forested lot, and many of the trees are in poor condition due to overcrowding. As a condition of approval for the Potrero subdivision, a chart showing allotted tree removal for each lot must be kept on file with the planning department. Any tree removal exceeding this amount must go before the Planning Commission. The allotted tree removal for this lot is 9 trees. The Supplemental Environmental Impact Report prepared for the Potrero subdivision found that effects would remain less than significant with implementation of mitigation measures, including that no more than 25% of the trees within each homeland boundary could be removed. So on this project, we are looking at about 12% of the trees within the homeland boundary being removed. In a previous Planning Commission hearing, staff was reminded to provide the status of tree removal in some of our larger subdivisions. So we've done that for Potrero. Exhibit G in the staff report. If you'd like to take a look at that. So we have updated the tree removal tracking chart to show how many trees within the Potrero subdivision have been removed on each lot and the total for the subdivision. A total of 280 trees were approved for removal for home and driveway development within Potrero. So currently, 147 trees have been approved for removal. That's about 53% of the total allotted tree removal. And 14 of the 29 lots have been built out, so about 48%. Now, many of the approved projects have had exactly the allotted number of trees removed. Several, on the other hand, have had significantly less trees that were required to be removed. Lot E18 there appears to be an anomaly in that the allotted tree removal is significantly lower than what would be required to build a home of any size, and especially one comparable to surrounding homes in the area. Assuming that all remaining lots are developed with the allotted amounts of trees as specified on that chart, the current the total count will still be under the approved amount. And this graphic shows which lots have been built out in green, and the gray lots are remaining. They have not yet been developed. The county has multiple tree removal policies, and this project is consistent with Title 21, Section 2164260, in that it was cited to require the least amount of tree removal under the circumstances. It is also consistent with Carmel Valley Master Plan Policy 311, which states that the county shall discourage the removal of healthy native oak, madrone, and redwood trees. An addendum has been prepared consistent with Section 15162 of the California Environmental Quality Act to address the increase in tree removal for this lot as compared to the approved permit for Potrero. This project has been conditioned to be consistent with the mitigation measures of the Potrero SEIR. Trees will be replaced at the approved ratios, which is 3:1 for non-landmark trees and 5:1 for landmark trees. The project arborist also recommended that we overplant in order to ensure survival of the required amount of trees, so a total of 110 trees will be planted. Now, due to the overcrowding conditions that exist on this site, only a few trees will actually be planted on site. The remainder will be planted in areas as designated by the Santa Lucia Preserve. Staff would like to make a correction to the resolution to adjust the project description to state approve a combined development permit consisting of an administrative permit and design approval to allow the construction of a 4,975 square foot two-story dwelling with a 1,067 square foot attached garage, an administrative permit and design approval for a detached 545 square foot guest house with an attached shed and handicapped access, 1,035 cubic yards of associated grading, and a use permit to allow the removal of 26 protected oak trees in general conformance with the attached sketch and subject to the conditions attached here too. Additionally, staff would like to add to adopt the mitigation and monitoring reporting program. And this is for the replacement tree mitigation measures that has been carried forward to be consistent with the SEIR. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission consider an addendum to the Potrero SEIR and approve the combined development permit consisting of the admin permit and design approval for the home, the admin permit and design approval for the guest house, and the associated grading, as well as the use permit to allow the removal of 26 coast live oak trees, and adopt a mitigation monitoring and reporting program. That concludes the presentation. Staff is available for questions.
Thank you. Questions for staff? Comments? Seeing none. Is the applicant or applicant's rep here today?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Richard Beard. I'm the architect, Richard Beard Architects in San Francisco for the project. Thank you also, Cheryl, for that very thorough staff report. In light of the thoroughness of the staff report, I'm going to give you a brief summary of the design process of the proposal that's in front of you today. The proposal, I'm happy to say, represents the result of a simple but what has turned out to be a very effective approach to site planning and design on this site to maintain really the healthiest trees and mitigate the amount of grading on the site. The drawing that you see in front of you is a summary site analysis drawing that we completed in 2016 prior to starting design on the site. We met on the site with the Design Review Board of the Santa Lucia Preserve. We're joined by Maureen Hand, the arborist, who's here today, the landscape architects, and the client. And spent a good deal of time talking and walking the site, reviewing the resources. The site is actually a fairly complex one, given the amount of trees on the site, and so it was really important that we had Maureen's advice in really ascertaining the best place to locate new development on the property. I want to highlight a couple of things. One is there's a knoll, a very prominent knoll over here on the north side of the site. What's indicated as the potential building zone was a result of our meeting. The dark green areas indicate mature and significantly healthy trees, and also trees that are very useful for screening any potential development for the site. Within this orange area that we identified as the potential building zone is the flattest area of the site. And also, one of the great benefits of having this particular exercise on the site was it was also the one that had the most significant number of trees that were unhealthy. So when we discounted the unhealthy trees and allowed for the fact that this was the levelest place on the site, it really gave us this, it really dictated this potential building zone as a prime opportunity for us. Also of note is you can see Goodrich Trail winding around here on the south and the east side of the site. The prime point of ingress onto the site is it's this point of the arrow. And significantly, there are three groupings of really beautiful and handsome trees, wonderful specimens that also provide excellent screening for the potential development or potential building zone. Just a couple of photographs on the site. Particularly of note is this view from driveway facing east. That bright green passion there is what's already a cleared area in the middle of the site, and is only amplified when you discount the unhealthy trees that lie near the perimeter of that. This is actually the first diagram we showed our clients after that meeting, showing how we could really capitalize on that potential building zone with a minimum of intrusion into the trees. The dark green trees here on this diagram coincide exactly with those that were identified as healthy and warranting retention and or screening value for the development of the house. And this is a developed landscape plan showing the final footprint of the house as it was submitted, and the green zones of the screening trees. And one of the first sketches we used in the design process to illustrate the massing of the house within the building zone that we designated. I'll conclude with that, but of course I'm available for questions, and Maureen's here also if you have any questions for the arborist. Thank you. Okay, any public comment on this particular application? Seeing none, bring it back to staff. Any further comment?
Staff has no further comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners? Mr. Dean?
I do have one question for the staff. We note 1,035 cubic yards of grading. Is that cut and fill balanced on site?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
The resolution would adopt permission for 1,035 cubic yards of associated grading. Is that grading to be cut and fill balanced on site? Is it to be exported, imported, whatever?
I think the We can have the architect confirm. I believe it is on site. The site is relatively flat, but it is sort of undulating, so there's a little bit of movement required to get to the base elevation.
Mr. Chair, with your indulgence, may I ask the applicant?
Go ahead.
Cut and fill is balanced on site.
I'm afraid you have to walk all the way to the microphone for the record.
Cut and fill is balanced on site.
Thank you.
Mr. Mendez.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question for the arborist.
Good morning, I'm Maureen Ham, the project arborist.
Good morning.
Hi.
When somebody says unhealthy, can you please explain that to me?
Well, unhealthy, so trees can be either poorly structured or unhealthy. An unhealthy tree doesn't have a full canopy, has very little leaf development, small size leaves, suppressed development.
Is there a specific lifespan for a tree when someone says, this tree is unhealthy?
No, we can't make that call.
So that tree can actually last a few months or a few years? Or?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, it might be able to help you out a little there. If you refer back to history and permit application, you'll find that almost all of the trees that were unhealthy are on the building sites. It's the strangest thing I ever heard of, but it seems to be the way it works. Not to say it isn't true, I'm just saying it seems to work out that way. You have something?
Mr.
Go ahead, Jackie.
Before the motion moves forward, there's one condition that County Council has requested that we add, and that's the indemnification agreement condition, which is not on the permit at this time, so we'd like to add the indemnification agreement condition to this permit.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioners? Mr. Dean?
If there's no further discussion, we'll be happy to move staff's recommendation in this matter as amended in this hearing.
Seconded by Commissioner Duflo. Comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Okay, moving on to item number 2, PLN 150133, Larson. And staff is ready, please proceed.
Good morning, Chair Rochester and Planning Commissioners. My name is Dee Van Donselar with RMA Planning, and the item today is PLN 150133. The owners are the Larson 2007 Trust, and today staff is requesting that we continue this application PLN 150133 to a date certain of July 12, 2017. And this project is the consideration of a rehabilitation and remodel of an existing 3,020 square foot single-family dwelling that may be eligible for historic status, and construction of a new 3,173 square foot single-family dwelling, and also for development within 750 feet of an archaeological resource. The project is located at 55A Riley Ranch Road, Carmel, in the Carmel Area Land Use Plan. And some issues have come up, and the applicant has requested the continuance of the public hearing, and we would also, staff would concur with this request for continuance.
Thank you. Is this the first request for a continuance on this item?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Is the applicant here?
Mr. Chairman, we have to hear from the public.
I know, I'll get there. I'm looking that way.
Sorry.
Is there any comment from the public on this continuance for this item? If so, please come forward.
Morning, Anthony Lombardo on behalf of the applicant. I just want to put your mind at ease. We have no sick trees around these buildings whatsoever. Yes, unfortunately, we had one of the neighbors complain vociferously about the netting being up for so long. We took it down and now is complaining vociferously about the netting being down. So we're going to put the netting back up before the next hearing. And then there were a couple of items in the staff report that when we got it, looked like they needed some correction, maybe for want of a better word, or some additional information. So we'll provide that to the staff or point them in the direction of that information between now and then. So the continuance is acceptable to us as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lombardo. Looking for a motion?
Mr. Chair, did we get a date certain for the continuance?
July. Last meeting in July, was it?
Was it the last meeting? Ms. Van Dansler, would you come back to the podium, please? When is the item being requested continued to?
To July 12th, 2017.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move continuance to July 12th at the request of the applicant as suggested and supported by staff.
Excuse me, through the chair, we have a request to speak, and it doesn't look like the request for speaking is for the continuance. It's speaking on the Alliance of Monterey. There's a letter that was distributed on the dais dated June 13, 2017 from the Alliance of Monterey Area Preservationists.
I think we should ask if there's a member of the public who wants to speak, on the continuance.
Well, I did that, but I'll be glad to go back to that.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Nancy Runyon. I'm the president of the Alliance of Monterey Area Preservationists, and I don't have a problem with the continuation. I can come back on July 12th to give my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, we have a
I'm happy to move continuance and appreciative of the restoration of the netting, now that I know that the netting is what I'm supposed to be looking at for the purpose of the hearing.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Padilla. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Bringing us to agenda item 3. PLN 160803. Catlin Big Sur Canna-Botanicals. Staff, whenever you're primed, far away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, Commissioners. My name is Craig Spencer with the Resource Management Agency. Here with me is Brandon Swanson, RMA Planning Manager. We are presenting today for your consideration the Catlin Use Permit Application, PLN 160803. The application was made by Big Sur Canna-Botanicals on behalf of Mr. Catlin, the property owner. The property is located at 26325 Carmel Rancho Lane in the Carmel Rancho Shopping Center. The zoning for the property is light commercial with a design control overlay.
Staff, can you hold a second? You seem to have folks coming in.
I'll start from the beginning. Again, good morning, Commissioners. My name is Craig Spencer with the Resource Management Agency Land Use and Community Development Division. Here with me is Brandon Swanson, RMA Planning Manager, presenting today the Catlin Use Permit Application, PLN 160803. The application was filed by Big Sur Canna-Botanicals on behalf of Mr. Caitlin. The project is located at 26325 Carmel Rancho Lane in the Carmel Rancho Shopping Center. It is zoned for light commercial use and has a design control overlay. The project includes a use permit to allow a commercial medical cannabis dispensary, and it includes design approval for a change in signage. Just by way of background, how we got to here, this is the first use permit application for a medical cannabis operation brought to the Planning Commission. This began in 2015, July of 2015, when the board adopted an interim ordinance that established a temporary ban on new collective or cooperative operations in Monterey County. It's worth noting that Big Sur Canna-Botanicals was granted an exception and they were allowed to continue operating while that ban was in place. In July of 2016, the Board of Supervisors adopted permanent regulations establishing requirements for permits and standards for those permits, and those regulations are now part of Monterey County Code and part of Title 21, our zoning ordinance. Those regulations require a use permit for all medical cannabis dispensaries and medical cannabis operations. That is the item before you today. The standards contained in the adopted regulations are numerous. First off, the location must be within a commercial zoning district. Again, this property is within a light commercial zoning. They cannot be within 600 feet of a school, park, or drug recovery facility. That criteria has also been met with this application. And they cannot be within 1,500 feet of another dispensary. Again, this is the first use permit application, and we'll get more into the dispensary setback location. There are requirements as part of the state law as well as the county's regulations that the applicant demonstrate that they have the ability to track and trace all of the products coming through and keep appropriate records so that we can verify that all of the products coming through have met the state law and the county requirements in terms of coming from legal permitted sources and not being diverted out of the legal market. The applicant has submitted evidence that they would use the MJ Freeway Track and Trace Program system that has been developed for cannabis operations and has been used elsewhere in the state. There are requirements in Title 21 for security measures. The applicant has provided information demonstrating that they can provide locked, safe areas with limited access, cameras, on-site security, similar to a bank in many circumstances. That security plan has been reviewed by the Sheriff's Department as well as the RMA planning and has been deemed adequate for the purposes of meeting the requirements of the county code. The application also includes information regarding consumer safety. There are packaging, testing, and supply chain requirements. The applicant proposes to use only tested, legally packaged, and permitted products within their stores to avoid contamination. There are requirements for the dispensary operation to limit or avoid, to the extent feasible, nuisances as part of their operation. That would include things such as odors. The applicant proposes to use carbon filters within their heating and ventilation systems, as well as air filtration systems on site to minimize odors. They will require all of their visitors to log into the site and sign information regarding the non-use of the products on the premises, and they will have security guards to minimize any loitering or other nuisances that may occur as part of their operations. They've also provided a 24-hour contact in the event that an issue arises. They've provided information relative to the federal enforcement priorities, including verifying all identifications and restrictions to access to youth as part of their operations program. Getting back to the one issue that was identified during review of this application, there is another use permit application for a medical cannabis dispensary within 1,500 feet of this permit. The RMA has developed a policy that applications be considered based on the application date and the time that the application was deemed complete, and that the setback be established only once a use permit for a cannabis dispensary is approved. In this case, this is the first application, and it was the first to be deemed complete by approximately 30 days. And if approved today, would be the first use permit to be approved to establish the required setback. Prior to leading up to today's hearing, we've had several comments from the public, including the Carmel Valley Land Use Advisory Committee, who unanimously recommended approval. As part of discussions on a separate permit, they did indicate that they are not recommending approval of any exceptions to any setbacks that may or may not occur. We also received multiple letters of support for the project, and related to the setback issue, we've received a request to consider the use permit applications based on the merit and as opposed to a first come, first served basis that I've just explained. Again, the RMA policy and interpretation is to consider the use permits on a first come, first served basis, and that the setback be established based on approval of the use permit. So just of note before proceeding, the use permit application is for the use of the existing tenant space on the site for a medical cannabis dispensary. Any medical cannabis dispensary operating on that site would be required to obtain separate permits and licenses for that operation. So Big Sur Canna-Botanicals in this case is proposed to be the operator on the site. They would be subject to business permit requirements, a business license, and in 2018 they would also need a state license to operate legally within that approved use permit site. That those business permits come with regular inspections and audits to ensure, again, the track and trace programs are in place and all the procedures that have been described today would be followed. The property owner, through this use permit, is responsible for ensuring that operations on their property comply with all the relevant requirements, or to seek action to help make that the case. So with that, staff recommends that the Planning Commission find the project categorically exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act and approve the use permit for commercial medical cannabis dispensary, subject to the recommended findings and conditions of approval. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Commissioners, any comments or questions? The applicant or the applicant's representative like to come forward?
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for your time. My name is Jennifer Rosenthal. I'm here on behalf of the applicants, Big Sur Canna-Botanicals. Thank you, Mr. Spencer, for your staff report and presentation. I think initially I'd like to give you a brief historical background of the applicants, followed by a overview of the staff recommendations of this project, followed up by any questions you may have, and I would like to reserve time for public comment, for rebuttal after public comment. Big Sur Canna-Botanicals is a nonprofit mutual benefit company registered with the state of California since 2014. They have been operating in the unincorporated areas of Monterey County as a medical mobile dispensary for the last 3 years. They are current and in compliance with all state corporate filings. There are statements of information, there are State Board of Equalization statements, and they have reported and paid the first quarter of the Monterey County cannabis tax, and they have reported their gross income for the second quarter of the Monterey County cannabis tax. The owners and operators are Aaron Stoney and John DeFloria, both of whom have resided in the Monterey County for over 25 years. This business is their sole business entity, and they have been successfully building this business and their medical patient base for the last 3 years. Their current business model and operational plans will remain intact through the transformation of their mobile medical dispensary service to a medical storefront. These policies and practices have proved viable and successful through this ever-changing, evolving, and competitive business. And as Mr. Spencer stated in his staff report, in July 2015, Monterey County enacted an interim moratorium prohibiting new or expanding cannabis businesses from beginning to operate. Within that moratorium, it provided applicants who were pre-existing to prove to the Director of Planning and apply for an exemption indicating that they were operating prior to the enactment of the moratorium. In April of 2016, Big Sur Canna-Botanicals applied for an exemption, and as stated by Mr. Spencer, they were one of 6 entities given an exemption to continue operating under the moratorium. In May, they were given this exemption. And in May of 2016, they began operating in the Carmel Rancho area. December 7th, 2016, the Monterey County began accepting applications for commercial medical cannabis use permit applications. Big Sur Canna-Botanicals was the first dispensary applicant to submit their use permit application. They were the first to be deemed complete, and they were the first to go before the Carmel-by-the-Buds and were given recommendations for this project. And as stated by staff, projects applications are to be evaluated on a first-come, first-served basis. So the proposed project site was previously a retail commercial spot. No design or building improvements are being sought aside from the proposed sign, which is included in the use permit application and meets the design control regulations and is in consistency with other signs in the area. Staff is recommending approval of this project because Big Sur Canna-Botanicals has been found to meet the required necessary findings in Chapter 2167040. We respectfully request you approve this project subject to the project conditions set forth by the county. Is there any questions that you have for me?
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to open up for public comment. How many people want to speak on this issue? Did any of you fill out? We have no application, so come up one at a time, please, and if you wish to speak next, you try to come up to the front so we're not watching somebody stroll up from the back row every time. You have 3 minutes.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here to support Big Sur Canna-Botanicals. My name is Dr. Deborah Malka. I am a physician specializing in cannabis evaluations and have been doing this in Monterey County for 5 years. I was the first physician to bring that specialty practice here. And during that time, since there haven't been any dispensaries open until just about 1.5 years ago in Delray Oaks, we have been constrained to working with delivery services. During that time, over the past 5 years, I've worked with 3 delivery services, which I continue to work with. 2 of them have been in practice for I don't know, maybe 8 years. And the Big Sur Canna-Botanicals, as soon as they came into the area, they were the first delivery service that is actually locally in Monterey County based, and as such have a big rapport with the patients that I see who are also in Monterey County based. That matters a lot because they really care about the community and the patients. And they stop by my office frequently to ask advice and consult about how to best serve these patients. Many of them are elderly, and they require delivery services. They're not that mobile. So an important consideration in a brick-and-mortar dispensary for me is that that group will also have the capacity to continue to serve as a mobile dispensary. And I have about 25% of my practice. I have 5,000 patients. 25% of my practice is 16 over. And this is a really significant concern for many of our elderly patients, that they have experienced delivery people who can help them choose their medicines, who have the patience to spend the time speaking with them. And if we were to talk about merit, I would say that Big Sur Canna-Botanicals is now the greatest, strongest group that is working with this population. I do not refer them non-medical patients. We don't deal with recreational use. That's a misnomer. It's misguided. Everybody needs a medical recommendation who has access to these dispensary and delivery services. And in my opinion, they've become very educated, knowledgeable, and compassionate, and I strongly urge you to allow them to continue in their mobile and brick-and-mortar capacity. I think it would be a great disservice to thousands of people not to have them continue in their work. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Good morning, Chair Rochester and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Paula Lotz. I've lived in Carmel Valley for over 20 years, and it has been a very long time since I've been before the Planning Commission to discuss a project in Monterey County. Many of you know me from the past. I come here today because I have a personal reason to advocate in favor of Big Sur Canna-Botanicals and having a local medical cannabis dispensary. For the last 8 years that I haven't been doing any land use, I've been doing one of the hardest jobs that any woman can endure, and that is caring for both of my elderly parents. And I only have my mother now. She's quite ill. She's been in hospice. She's suffering with congestive heart failure, and it makes her anxious, and she has chest pain. And I've been using medical cannabis as her caregiver, and she is relieved from her pain, her anxiousness, her sleeplessness, and her loss of appetite. I've only had the ability to purchase the cannabis via home delivery, as Dr. Malka discussed. I need to, as a caregiver, have the opportunity locally to purchase at a retail location so I can see the different products and how they are administered. My mother is not smoking cannabis. She's using patches for pain, tinctures, mints, that type of thing. And I need to be able to see what's available product-wise and have that available for me to look at. And they have been, Big Sur Canna-Botanicals has been the ultimate in professional, helping my 89-year-old mother for pain and my mother's medical needs, and I strongly support the approval of their use permit for a medical cannabis dispensary. Thank you for your time.
Next speaker.
Hi, thank you for your time. My name is Karen Mankins, and I've been a registered nurse for a long time here. I've lived in Monterey County for over 45 years. I worked at Carmel Valley Manor for 17 years, and 4 years ago, one of my residents started medical marijuana, and she got off of 6 drugs and was doing actually fantastic. Then all of a sudden, all the residents there decided they wanted cannabis. So I saw the need out here in Monterey County, and if it wasn't for Big Sur Canna-Botanicals, those residents wouldn't be able to be off of their drugs, their big pharmaceuticals, and using cannabis successfully, doing fantastic. I just want to show you something, because now I'm a consultant here in Monterey County for cannabis. And medically, it is, I tell you what, Big Sur Canna-Botanicals, it's all about education. And this is what we're pushing as well, to educate the public and to be there on site as much as possible to answer questions of any patients. But I do want to show you something.
These are patients in Carmel.
You need to go back to the microphone for the recording if you can.
These are patients just in Carmel, because I do follow up with them. They're off their opiates. They're off of numerous medications, and their quality has changed. And most of these patients are 70 years and older. I have 200-year-olds that are using cannabis successfully and without the side effects. I just cannot tell you how much we need a brick and mortar building for these people to be able to come to when their doctors write recommendations. I currently have 7 doctors now in Monterey County that are referring me their patients, and more are coming on board. I speak to many nurses. I speak at lots of conferences. Nurses are coming on board. Please allow this place for our sweet people in Carmel. They need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good morning. Thank you for your time. My name is Nick Villarreal. And I met Aram and John in 2015 when my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer while pregnant. It was our only option, and Aram was there 110% in education, compassion, and even just good business sense. He's always been there for our community. This is grassroots grown. Everybody knows him. Everybody supports him and John because they do the work. They help make people better through their services. They are compassionate, and they bring us together. Look at all these people in this room. We are human. This is what we're doing right now. We're making history. Please allow this dispensary. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing us an opportunity to speak. My name is Catherine Bouquet. My family owns the Carmel Rancho shopping center across from this proposed location. We've owned this shopping center for 50 years. In my shopping center I have Bed Mayo, In-Shape Gym, and the Rock Connection, if you're familiar with that area. I want to speak about the business aspect here, although I do have a mother who's 94 who is a patient of Big Sur Canna-Botanicals. I also think that you might have some concerns about security, or other business owners or other tenants who might be worried about having an operation like this. I am not one bit. I am thrilled that they're coming in. These gentlemen are so professional. They are so responsible. And as others have said, they're very compassionate too. So as a business owner, not even 500 yards from where they'll be, I highly approve of their business and their reputation, and I hope you'll consider passing this. Thank you.
Hi. My name is Alexandra Albin. I'm a patient of Canna-Botanicals, and I've had 24 orthopedic surgeries in 20 years. I've been on lots of opiates, and through Canna-Botanicals, I've been able to reduce my opiate use and because I have severe bone pain. And the edibles that Canna-Botanicals provides and their services and their compassion is really unparalleled in this community. And I really do hope that you guys support an organization like them, because I don't want to drive to Santa Cruz to find my medicine. And I really appreciate the fact that I'm off of opiates, because the side effects of opiates are not fun. So, thank you very much.
Morning, everyone. Thank you for the time to speak. My name is Seth Parker. I own Pacific Land, Water, and Home. I'm a local contractor. My clients include Carmel Valley Ranch, Ventana, Post Ranch, some of the larger businesses around here. And I am upstairs from the potential or the proposed dispensary site. And I just wanted to assure everyone that, I welcome them there. I don't feel like there's any stigma attached to their service, except for to the benefit, And if there's anything that I do kind of struggle with, it's the fact that their doors have been closed for a long time, and I wish you would help them get them open. Thank you.
Good morning, Planning Commissioners. My name's Jason Rutterer. I'm here on behalf of Valentia Valentine, who founded a group called Synchronicity Holistics. Ms. Valentine has been a pioneer in the medical cannabis industry in Monterey and supports this application. I worked with Valentia back in 2010 in our efforts to open a dispensary in the city of Monterey well before the county adopted their regulations. Unfortunately, the city chose to ban dispensaries. But undeterred, Valentia continued to advocate for patient access and patiently waited for the county to change their rules to allow dispensaries. After the county adopted their regulations, Valentia searched diligently for property that was properly zoned for this use and found a building in the Carmel Rancho shopping center that she purchased for over $2 million. She opened escrow and proceeded to buy the building. I wanted to make the Planning Commission aware that Synchronicity Holistics has also applied for a use permit to operate a dispensary in the shopping center. She submitted the DRC application at the same time as Big Sur Canna-Botanicals, but took some time to professionally plan the final design based on DRC's comments, which delayed submittal of the application. The Planning Commission is going to be hearing her application later this month or early next month. And as staff points out in your staff report, the county's ordinance prohibits dispensaries within 1,500 feet of one another. Synchronicity Holistics' proposed dispensary is within 1,500 feet of the proposed location. At the same time, the ordinance does not address situations where there are two pending applications within that same 1,500-foot radius. There is no first come, first served provision. There's also no criteria for evaluating competing applications within the same radius. We don't think that Synchronicity Holistics should be penalized for waiting to start operating a dispensary until the county adopted its ordinance and for putting together a comprehensive application. I'll also note that Synchronicity Holistic is proposing to operate a much different dispensary. Synchronicity Holistic's proposed dispensary will operate much like a medical clinic with a pharmacist and registered nurses, along with providing educational resources, including seminars for its patients. It will be exclusively medical cannabis, and it will provide a truly unique experience to its patient base. We think there's good policy reasons that favor two dispensaries in this area. And I do want to emphasize that this isn't a fight against this particular application. Valentia and Synchronicity Holistic supports this application. However, we request that the Planning Commission provide direction to staff when there are these dual application situations which could surface in the future, or review the applications together since there is no criteria or process spelled out in the ordinance. I think there's good policy reasons for allowing a variance for two dispensaries. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for letting us speak. My name is Richard Catlin. I'm the property owner for this dispensary. And I just wanted to let you know that my dad built the buildings in 1984. He moved here in 1942. He opened a real estate company in 1952 in Carmel. And we're very concerned about the area in general. My wife has been the president of the association for 4 years. She's improved the area. She's concerned about the other landlords and the tenants. And I think that probably about a year and a half ago, we were approached by 3 other people to open a dispensary. I do have to say I'm nervous. I apologize for that. But I do want to make the point that our main concern is the other property owners and our existing tenants. We have 2 buildings there that are about 25,000 square feet. This dispensary will be about 2,200 square feet. And so my main concern the whole time has been, how will this impact our existing tenants? And our existing tenants are accountants, attorneys, door and window shops, and I've been hesitant because will a dispensary bring in, or may it have an impact on these existing tenants? In considering the people that came to us, Aaron and John really stood head and heels above the others as far as their approach to the dispensary and their ear in hearing our concerns on how to run it. We did write up an ironclad lease where we have specific nuisance clauses that if we have a concern, they will address it. Again, like I said, our concern has been for the other tenants and property owners, primarily Aaron and John secondarily. And I can't tell you that every time I come to a meeting or I talk to one of the other property owners, they tell me that they are so impressed with Aaron and John and how they conduct themselves professionally, answer questions. They've had 2 open houses to address any concerns or questions that these property owners have had. The design of the dispensary is well designed really to have 0 impact on the other businesses in the area, the barnyard, our accountant next door. We've put a lot of money into this design, about $200,000 to build it out for them. Again, I just want to say I've been really impressed with their professionalism, and I fully support them, and I hope you do too. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Aram Stoney, and I am the co-owner of Big Sur Canna-Botanicals, which is a medical cannabis consultation and delivery service. I was born in Carmel Valley, and I have spent the majority of my life here in Monterey County. I currently still live in Carmel Valley with my wife and 2 young daughters, as does my good friend and business partner, John DeFloria. Although we are here to discuss our land use permit application, I would like to just point out that it is about so much more than location. It is about our community. Growing up here, living and working here, raising my family here, has given me a deep understanding of the needs of our community. John and I realized that many of our neighbors had to drive all the way to Santa Cruz in order to fill their medical cannabis recommendations. A real hardship, if not impossibility, for so many who are older and often suffering from painful, debilitating ailments. Additionally, we realized that there was a great need for accessible, thorough education in the safe practices of medical cannabis use. This is the reason we started our business over 3 years ago. The need for experienced, qualified dispensary operators that can serve and educate our community has only increased. This need is one of the reasons we focus on building relationships with the local medical community, both alternative and traditional, to facilitate medical cannabis options for their patients. Big Sur Canna-Botanicals is not just a cannabis business, it's a local, family-owned and operated small business. We treat everyone that we work with, from our employees to our members, as family. We build relationships, not just a customer base. We share the good moments when our members or their loved ones find relief from our products, and we also share the bad. We share tears with them when their members or their loved ones pass away. We find comfort and meaning in our work knowing that the services we provided help so many manage the difficulties of their day-to-day lives and help them deal with a dignified ending. The cannabis industry is seeing a massive takeover by the elitist 1% and the large corporations who really do not care about the medical benefits of cannabis. They just see the dollar signs. We understand the true medicinal value and take great pride in being able to help our neighbors. The true backbone of any community is in the support for locally owned and operated businesses. Now back to the location and the main reason that we are here. We have strived to create an environment that reflects our local community, one that is warm, vibrant, welcoming, and most of all safe. Our primary focus has been and will remain the care of our members through education, safe practices, and quality medical cannabis products. Our proposed project and site do just that. We implore you today to follow your staff's recommendation to grant us the use permit so that we can continue to serve our community. I thank you for your time and your consideration.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Andrew Armanosco. I'm a representative from Divinity Protection Services. We are an international executive protection company that represents several cultivations and dispensaries in California, Colorado, Arizona. I wanted to say that my experiences with Aaron and John have been an absolute pleasure. They have followed every single guideline and have done their due diligence and their research, making sure that security is the utmost number one priority for the Rancho area. I just want to say it's been a pleasure working with them, and they're by far doing their homework to make sure that they do everything that needs to be done. Thank you.
Morning. Anthony Lombardo. I represent the Barnyard Shopping Center. That's the neighbor, I think, relatively close to this facility. I'm here on behalf of the owner, not the tenants, to express our support for this application. It's an appropriate location for this activity to occur. It will, as far as we can see, has not and will not interfere with the operation of the barnyard. I'm concerned by a suggestion of the previous speaker that this would be an appropriate location for multiple dispensaries, and the one that they referred to in specific gives us great concern because of its relative proximity to the barnyard. So we're in support of this one and hope you will approve it today. I don't see there's any legal basis to either deny the application or continue it pending other applications. Obviously, in the land use world, that's what happens. You know, someone who comes in with a subdivision earlier is likely to get an approval, and somebody who comes in later. That's just the nature of the beast. And we support the 1,500-foot setback that the ordinance currently has. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to express our views. My name is Peter Noto. I've been a resident of the county for a little over 2.5 years now. I live within the 1,500 square foot radius of this facility. I've also had the pleasure of getting to know John and Aram over the last year, and would like to tell you that from a moralistic and character base, very impressed with these two gentlemen. See this as a service, having hospiced my dad at home and witnessed the pain and the ugliness of that. Our county needs this service. These two gentlemen are the right people to run this service, and I very much hope that you will grant them that opportunity. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Planning Commissioners. My name is Yoko Whitaker, and I live in Carmel. And as a former chairman of the Planning Commission in Carmel, I think this is very good planning for the dispensary to be located in this particular location. It's central. People from the South Coast can access it. People from Monterey and Carmel, who will not allow a dispensary to be located there, will have the convenience of coming to that spot. And as a previous speaker said, the next closest location is Santa Cruz, which is 45 minutes away. I have known John DeFloria and Aram Stoney for many years, and I know them to be upright and responsible citizens, and so I think there is no question of the integrity behind what they're doing. One thought that I had, I'm not familiar with the county's dispensary regulations, but I wrote a note down so I wouldn't forget. As medical marijuana dispensaries are new territory for local planning, I would, if it's not already done, I would recommend consideration of a moratorium on more than one dispensary in a 3-mile radius within the county until the impacts have been studied. So I would like you to consider that, and thank you for your time.
Good morning. Thank you for your time and opportunity to speak. I'd also submitted a letter on Aram's behalf, and this is in regard to the opportunity to work with Aram and somebody that has been one of the most compassionate individuals I've found in my previous years of dealing with intense chronic pain and rehabilitation of the pelvic floor. So for 5 years, I had a chronic recurring bacterial infection in my prostate. It led to a lot of pain, a lot of dysfunction, and a lot of opportunity for me to ultimately feel a little bit lost at times. I sought the help of Western medicine through urologists, through a lot of painstaking trial and error tests, cost thousands of dollars. I moved from Illinois to Asheville, North Carolina to seek the help of Eastern medicine practices with Chinese acupuncture and medicine and herbal treatments, finally getting rid of the infection, but the pain persisted. I tried to move forward in life, be strong, found yoga practice, different physical exercises that I could do to kind of rehab my pelvic floor on my own, and in the meantime having to go through pelvic floor rehabilitation. We won't get into those details today, as it could be too much information for a lot of our folks in the audience, but ultimately just know it's some of the most uncomfortable, painful experiences you'll have in your life. Information that's very sensitive to share with others, and I struggled to find answers to this pain. Ultimately, I moved to Monterey, California for the temperate climates to help with muscle issues and pain, and have found some success there, but ended up venturing into medical marijuana as an additional solution to contributing all of my time outside of work to managing this issue, as otherwise I'm in chronic pain all the time and I'm in bed all the time. I've had to relearn to sit different ways. I have to take a cushion with me everywhere. Thanks for having cushioned seats today. That's a big deal to a guy like me. I've had to relearn to walk. I will maybe never jog again, or ride a bicycle, or ride a horse. And ultimately, the medical marijuana was a solution that I thought may help kind of take the edge off this. So all of my time outside of work doesn't just go to managing chronic pain. Mindfulness meditation for pain is significant in my life. It's helped me reorient my approach to pain and understanding pain. Ultimately, working with Aram Stoney, though, ended up being kind of the icing on the cake, if you will. I found some great healers in this, in Monterey. A lot of beautiful work being done here. And ultimately, Aram Stoney ended up being one of those individuals that took time that he did not have. He sat with me on days where I was in so much pain that all I could do was cry. He didn't know me. I don't know anyone in this community. I had no one to reach out to. And he became a face of compassion and care for me. So I just wanted to emphasize his ability to connect with the community and to help individuals such as myself. And it's been very significant in my life. So thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, all. Thanks for the opportunity for allowing us to voice our views and our experience on this matter. Just to amplify, my wife spoke a few speakers back. we've been through about 24 major orthopedic surgeries over the past dozen or so years. And as you can imagine, when you're cycling through those, and I estimate 1.5 major surgeries per year, some of them are severe enough to warrant several months of in-home physical therapy, where the patient is fairly constrained either to the house or unable to commute to a remote location to find these products. So that's obviously benefit number one, having a local and responsible repository or depository. But the experiences that I've had, and I don't use the product myself, but am there to help my wife through these various surgeries, are that when she has enlisted Aram's help, I have never seen a level of professionalism, a level of expertise, a level of compassion and concern for the patient inside or outside of the Western medical system. I have never seen such a dedication to helping a patient or a customer or the person who requires this service, guiding them through the various product choices that are available, the media in which they're offered, the dosages. It's a fairly complex bag of wares that's being offered now, and this company for whom the application is being sought approval does a remarkable job of, from what I've seen, of counseling and advising patients. So I would hope you would let them continue that.
Can I see what the show of hands? How many more people can speak? I'm going to say one or two, so we'll go ahead and finish. Otherwise, we'll take a break. But with that number, we'll go ahead. Excuse me, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I just want to emphasize once again on the educational value. I myself, activities director, recreational therapist for 20-some years for Life Care Communities, and speaking among the elderly, which I'm dealing with right now in consultations and so forth with the use of cannabis, I see an incredible need. But the need becomes, the plant is there, the opportunity to learn it is up to all individuals. We need people to educate the people who would like to come in, who need to come in as patients. Education is crucial. Aram and John has put together a team that will be there to successfully grant ideas and recommendations for the use of anyone's individual needs. I myself am a patient. I have osteoarthritis severely. I'm speaking with the gentleman and lady over here. Surgeries, I've had 20 surgeries in the past 20 years myself. It's not fun. I just met Aram so many months ago. Quality individual, him and John. Respect the educational process that they're going to be following through with, and the professional staff that they do have that will be continuing with them also. So please, I highly recommend this. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Hi there, I'm Hillary Hamilton, and I have the pleasure of knowing Aram and John just from being in the community and sharing kids in school together. Speaking on behalf of their character, they're the kind of person you'd want to live next door to. They're trustworthy, reliable, honest, and Aram and his wife are always the first ones to sign up for snacks, for volunteering, being involved in the school, any school functions, room parents. So that speaks to their character, but I also was a patient. I'm in recovery a year and a half from going through breast cancer treatment. So I went through 16 rounds of chemo, 29 radiation treatments, and 6 surgeries. And the first round of chemo, I was in the hospital, and after I came out, I was so chock full of all these prescription drugs, and I wasn't sure how I was going to deal with the next 15 rounds of chemo ahead. So my oncologist, Nancy Rubin, recommended we look at cannabis and medicinal cannabis, particularly CBD oil. And unbeknownst to our relationship with Aram, she recommended Aram Stoney because a lot of her patients work with Aram, and they've had great success, not only from the CBD oil, but just the way he is with her patients. And that says a lot, because when you're in your most vulnerable place in your life where you don't want to really see people, you don't have any hair, you want someone who can come in and has just a calm energy and knows and is confident with the product and confident with what dosage. And, I was, going into this pretty naive, like, I don't know if I'm going to have THC, what's going to happen, and really needing someone to hold my hand through the process and tell me what the benefits would be, how it was going to help me. And I just knew that I didn't want to take any more prescription drugs. I didn't want my body swollen. I didn't want just all the side effects that I was dealing from the prescription drugs. So Aaron was able to just, step by step take me through this process. And the next time I was in, they wanted to hospitalize me after I went through chemo and all my numbers were dropping, I was able to have home health care and not go through that back to the hospital. I also got severely burned from radiation, and I was able to put the salve on, the CBD oil on it, and that helped clear it up. So all of this to say is without that access to Aaron, without that access to his knowledge and his service and his bedside manner, and then speaking to his character, they brought meals to our family, picked up our kids. I just feel really strongly about the type of person and feel that the Barnyard is lucky to have the characters of these two running and putting together this dispensary with integrity and a conscious mind.
Okay. Seeing no more speakers, before I bring it back to the commission, I'd like to compliment each and every one of you for sticking to the timeline, because that never happens. This is a great group. Thank you very much. Stephanie, the applicant, would you like to say anything else before we? I have a question for you when you get through.
I'm here to answer any questions you have.
Could you take me through briefly how this works? Does a person have to come to the dispensary with a prescription?
So starting from the beginning, an individual will go to a licensed physician.
Speak closer to me.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So an individual who has various health issues will go to a licensed physician. They'll be evaluated by their doctor. If the doctor sees it appropriate or an appropriate form of rehabilitation or medicine, they would then prescribe a physician recommendation. So once an individual has a physician recommendation, they can go to a medical cannabis collective, which is how these entities are currently being operated under the Attorney General guidelines and the Compassionate Use Act and the Health and Safety Code. So a collective is a nonprofit mutual benefit company that's registered with the state of California, and a patient would then need to apply or become a member of a collective. And there's a certain amount of guidelines and forms and obligations and responsibilities that one has to comply with in order to become a member of the collective. Recommendations are valid for 1 year, and you have to get your recommendation renewed annually. And with that, you also have to annually reapply to be a member of the collective. So only members of a collective are allowed into a storefront dispensary if that's permitted in an area, or to a mobile dispensary coming into their home. And the mobile dispensary is required to verify the patient is actually validly recommended. So there is a process by which you can, the entity, Aram in this instance, would have to call a number, verify that the patient number is valid and that this is legitimate. Once The verification has been done. What would happen at this proposed site would be the security personnel would be at the door. They would check the person's identification to ensure that they are over 18 years old. They would then check their recommendation. The individual would be escorted into the main waiting area. There are photographs in the use permit. I can put some up on the slideshow if you'd like to see what it would look like for your, would you like some photographs to help you visualize?
No, that's fine. I just wondered, the first prescription, is it ailment specific, or is it just a general?
Well, the individual has to specify to their doctor what kind of symptoms they are experiencing.
Okay. That's general. I appreciate that. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair? Yes, you mentioned mobile. I guess this question also for both you and staff. Is part of the permit that we're reviewing today includes a mobile part of it? Or is that a separate permit? Or how does that work? Since this is all new to us. So how does this work? Is it part of this permit process we're going through today? Or because you didn't mention anything about mobile when you did your presentation.
Through the chair. The application is for a use permit for a cannabis dispensary that includes an aspect of a delivery service. Mobile dispensaries are not permitted under our code. They have to be a delivery service from a brick and mortar location. So the application before you is for the brick and mortar location that includes an aspect that it involves delivery services from that location.
So that includes the mobile part of it?
That's correct.
Okay, you mentioned the safeguards you have with that. Okay, thank you.
Would you like, did you want me to evaluate?
No, I think you already covered it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else for the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bring it back to staff. Anything else, Steve?
We have nothing to add at this time.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Deal?
Thank you. I'd just like to state that we at the Planning Commission did ask a number of meetings ago to review the process to ensure that we would have a fair application process that was public and everybody understood what it was. I want to congratulate staff for having outlined that and followed it scrupulously so that everybody involved with this would understand what the basis of the application was going to be, and that we said what we were going to do, and then we did what we said. And I want to congratulate staff for that, at which time I'd be happy to move staff's recommendation.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner, who seconded it? Mr. Medina? Before we vote, did you have a comment, Commissioner Rosenthal?
Thank you, Chair Rochester. The only thing in this, I'm totally in favor of the project, and I think everyone did a wonderful job. I'm sure the staff made sure that all the T's were crossed and the I's dotted, or however that works, so I'm very comfortable with that. And I believe that this type of, we just have to get used to this type of project, and we have to decide if we're going to be on board with this or not. And personally, I am. The issue that I find here is the issue of as Commissioner Deal pointed out, the timing of the application process, and then, of course, the 1,500 feet separation of these types of projects. Personally, I have an issue with the 1,500 feet separation. I do not have an issue if, perchance, facilities, 2 or 3 were located even in the same building, more like an auto mall concept. That does not bother me to have them all in one place where one can find them all if one is looking. I mean, if one is a medical patient looking for them, or if one happens to be somehow involved with government and overseeing these projects. So the only issue I find in this whole thing is just the ancillary issue of the 1,500 feet and the other application. So I just really wanted to go on record as saying I really don't have a problem with another one being within 1,500 feet. And, yeah, but I think I pretty much covered it. Thank you.
Thank you. County Council, you had a comment.
I thought I might respond to Commissioner Getzelman's comment, which is to say, as you know, part of the hallmark of implementing an ordinance is, having a rational basis for doing so, and providing, a fair process, and making your decision based on the particular application. So if and when there is a subsequent application that comes before you, if it is within the 1,500 feet, then at that time you would have the opportunity, to address that issue based on the merits of that application and whatever options staff might present at that time.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair.
Okay, I just have a motion.
A couple of comments. I want to congratulate all the public. It was quite educational. So, we're learning. It's a whole new world to all of us. And I myself know people that probably can use that services. Before, it was, if you said the word marijuana, you would say, "Oh my God, what's he talking about?" So, but anyway, I congratulate all of you, and I do support the project.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? So moved. Yeah, we're going to take a break right now. I really appreciate the flower of issue, wouldn't it? Because then you've got to boo when you get field of nation, and then I'd have to say, geez. Thank you. We'll take 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't know what you've been doing. Okay, folks, let's gather around and get her done.
Five, six, seven. Yes, we do. But you know what? You don't have Ms. Nickerson.
She's right there.
Thank you, Jack.
Okay, let's reconvene, which brings us to our departmental or other matter. No, this is other matters. Any?
There should be none.
None. Okay. How about our department report from our secretary?
There were, thank you, Chair Rochester. There were two items that were requested to be on under department report. One is a verbal discussion regarding the creation of a planning commission ad hoc committee to address planning procedures and policies, and that was a request for the agenda by Commissioner Getzelman.
Who would like to speak to the issue?
Yeah, who will speak, yes. On Item number 5, I just wanted to say the verbal report on new rules adopted by the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District that involve evaluating consumptive use. We don't have a response from the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District, so we'd like to bring that item back to the commission and get something in writing from the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District that then we will post on the agenda for the public to access as well, relative to the definition of consumptive use. And then one other item before we go into the discussion. At our next Planning Commission meeting, I just wanted to make a note to the commissioners that we may go into the after lunchtime because we have short-term rentals on that item. So I just wanted a note to the commissioners as they're preparing for that day as we're coming back that we have short-term rentals on that item, and so it may be a longer day.
That's the next meeting?
Yes, I can give you that date. It's the 28th of June 28th.
Okay.
So we go back to item number 4, the discussion of the
Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair Rochester. So, fellow commissioners, let me tell you the purpose and why I requested this issue, or this item be put on the agenda. It goes back to January of this year when circumstances in one of the meetings in January were such that I felt that what happened reflected either badly on the planning department or badly on us, and that gave me pause to consider how we might be able to help alleviate some of those issues going forward. At least I would hope we could, so that we could smooth some of this stuff out before it got into that state. So what was suggested to me after meetings with both county council and with the director of RMA was that perhaps, and this is only a suggestion on my part, that an ad hoc committee might be a good way to approach this issue. The way I envision it would be meetings of those commissioners who would like to become involved in procedural issues. I need to reiterate and to emphasize that what I'm talking about is not what the planning department decides to do, but about procedural issues on how the planning department is approaching the job of being a planning department. So this is nothing to do with any issue that the public might want to comment on, or maybe they do, I don't know. But it would be to iron out perhaps issues ahead of time, like Commissioner Deal wanted to bring to the attention of the department the issues with the Big Sur people who were, she felt, not being represented, and I would agree in some of these things, in some of our meetings, or the last issue that Commissioner Deal referred to just today was the issue of whether or not, of whether the planning department had responded to the thing that, unfortunately, I can't remember exactly now what it was, but it was how these permits are put, or the application process is put into a queue, and whether that is fair or not. It would be those types of issues, I think, that in my vision, that we would talk about, and my original thought is perhaps just quarterly. Carl has agreed that he would like to participate, and his suggestion would include Jacqueline and perhaps Brandon, and then the commissioners that would want to be involved. But it would be limited to those types of issues that perhaps we can iron out. And I know personally I get issues brought to me by my constituents about the planning procedures, about the planning department, how it does things, and I have questions. They have questions, so therefore I have questions. And it's those kind of issues that, we could do it, I suppose, in open session, but I think it would just be wasting everybody's time, in my honest opinion. So, that's why I wanted to bring it to you for open discussion and to get your thoughts as to whether that would be worthwhile or not.
Thank you. Anybody else want to comment on that?
Yeah, I'm trying to understand this particular item that Commissioner Getzman's bringing up.
What can I answer for you?
Well, I, for one, I believe that, there's a lot of things that I need to be educated on, I really do. But and I truly hate to say this, but unfortunately for me, it's really the lack of memory, really, than anything else. I can't remember Jack Diddley, but I think it's, with me, I probably need to go a little bit further than what you're asking, Commissioner Getzman. I've always wondered, I always was curious, I never asked this question before, is that, when we first come in, our first day, first week, second week, whatever, there's no, at least I didn't receive any, maybe some of you have, but I've never received any kind of training at all, so maybe that's what's needed, maybe that's what's lacking, but that's just me. I mean, it's I'm sitting next to a commissioner right now, Martha Deal, that she's extremely knowledgeable on practically all of this planning commission stuff, but I fight with it, every time I'm up here on the diocese. But it's really because of lack of memory, though. But maybe that's what we need. That's just my opinion. Yeah.
Well, just a second. Rules and regulations you can learn. Read a book. How to deal with real problems comes with experience, and you get that by the seat of your pants and doing it. Don't sell yourself short. You've come a long way as far as a commissioner, as far as I'm concerned. I didn't think you were going to cut it, but you're doing damn good. So what you're talking about is not the same thing as what Paul is talking about. As an ad hoc committee to find out the procedures, the way staff operates, worth doing? That's the question.
Yes, I share Commissioner Getzman's concern that I think we have the ability somehow to be helpful to the department as it goes through establishing clear processes. But I would hold up the fact that we had an issue this time that we just dealt with in one respect right now, where we had a question about what was the process going to be to deal with applications that came in at very close times for the same thing where there's a limit. And that's a pretty big issue because we want to be fair. It's placed us in the position of deciding who's going to be first, and being first is a big deal because it makes a huge difference in what hurdles your project would have to overcome. We did have that discussion in public. And the fact that we had that discussion in public was very helpful to me today when staff came back with a report reflecting what we had said, because I could feel confident that everybody had had a chance to know what that was going to be beforehand. Now, they don't have to like it. That's a different problem. If staff thinks that it would be useful to have some group of commissioners to bounce ideas about process off of in a small group as they're determining the policy that will then come forward to the public for people to understand and comment on, I could certainly make myself available in any way it might be appropriate if staff were to find a venue where that would be helpful. What I wouldn't want to do is to add another unwanted set a bunch of advice that didn't have any clear authority behind it, because a subgroup wouldn't. It would have to come back to the commission. So I'm hesitant, given the energy shortages I see with our department, to add to it unless the department strongly feels it would be helpful, in which case I, for one, and I think most of us, would be happy to help in any appropriate way that we could, understanding that any suggestions we made would have to come back through a public process.
If I can say something, Commissioner Getzelman made a comment about what was happening in January, and I think we had a couple of mishaps in the planning department. First of all, and I've said this at the commission, but I really want to bring to light what happened in our department. Many of you know that beginning, I'm going to say probably April of last year, we began to lose staff. And our director retired. Laura Lawrence had left. We lost like three managers within about a 4-month period. We then proceeded to lose 6 planners, and these were seasoned planners who had been trained. We were down to the long-range planning staff. That was 5 people that were trying to do the job at one point where 23 people were running the department with a director. And we're now, even now, we're at 14, where we had 23. So the constituency of Monterey County was up in arms. They couldn't get a call back. They couldn't get a response in an email. We were continuing items at the Planning Commission. We reorganized the department where you had different planners at different phases because we only had 5 planners who could process projects. We didn't come to the Planning Commission and say to the Commission where we were. We then went into a reorganization in the RMA where the director position was totally cut, a chief of planning position came in, and then we reorganized. We then went into budget hearings where, in the meantime, the long-range planning staff was trying to apply for grants so that we could keep moving forward on the implementation of the general plan, which most of you know, with the Permit Streamlining Act, if someone submits an application, we have to process that application. So we have guidelines for when we're processing current planning applications. So we took other than cannabis, we took our staff and we reallocated them to begin to process current planning applications. Now, we didn't do that perfectly, and people began to miss other seasoned staff that had left. We limped along, we tried to be responsive. Now we have new staff that we have to train. Some of them are growing, some of them still need our help. We have key positions that are still vacant. The staff is staying long hours. We're still trying to respond. We still have deadlines. So in January, we came to the commission, and I think we continued items because we couldn't even get the staff reports out to get them reviewed properly, to have proper information in them. So it was really, I'm trying to think of the right word to say, it was very difficult for us. It was difficult for us to just come to the commission and stand before the public at a podium. It was very hard. So now we're trying to get our feet under us. We're at a place where we're trying to have consistent meetings. You get the information out on time. You get your packets. We're not hand delivering them. There was a point where we were hand delivering them to some of you, not South County, but we were willing to drive down in some cases. And I don't make excuse for that because we just woke up and we were there. So we would appreciate ways that we could be more efficient, and it is in a collaborative situation that we hear of things that we may not have thought of. I mean, we have great minds, but certainly maybe quarterly we can address some of the issues from the constituency that you're hearing from your residents in your area that we can have an open conversation about. We've repeatedly been told that our website is not updated and just various things in the planning department that we can improve, and we're trying to get there. So we don't have a problem giving suggestions that we can implement that will improve our processes, because we recognize that, first of all, we're public servants and we represent the whole county, the whole RMA. So we welcome how to do that effectively and transparently. I don't know if the ad hoc is the way to do that, or if, like Commissioner Diaz said, we meet ad hoc and then we come back and bring the procedures forward. I think one thing we have to do better is consistently communicate with the commissioners first before the public finds something out. And that we did not do very well.
Yeah, and thank you, Jackie, because in my opinion, you just have made my point for me. It's communication that I'm talking about. That is the point, really, of quarterly meetings, is to talk about this. Now, maybe doing it in public would be a better issue, but there are some things that are strictly procedural that I don't know that we want to delve into. I mean, help me with this, fellow commissioners, because I'm kind of working through this as I go. My goal is communication. My goal is to help the planning department get better, and we have the input because we get it from our constituents, if you will. So we're the ones that get this stuff. You know, they can become insulated because, as Jackie said, they're busy just putting out fires. They don't necessarily have the input that we do. My goal with this suggestion is simply to increase communication and make that process better for them. How we do that is still to be determined. You know, Commissioner Deal made one suggestion. I have another idea, but if there are people who have ideas, I'm more than willing to take on a solution. Maybe members of the public have them. Some of the land use attorneys that we deal with might have ideas. Those things can be brought, in my mind, those things can be brought into the process through these quarterly meetings. If we discover that this communication thing is a good thing, then maybe monthly meetings. But right now, I don't think that's necessary. I think maybe a quarterly, we get together for an hour and work this out, and, I mean, talk about things, and then that's that.
I just wanted to make one procedural point, which I think is something Commissioner Deal alluded to, which is that, you know, if you were to elect to appoint an ad hoc committee, that would be merely making recommendations, and it would need to come back to the full commission. In other words, if there was some, say, recommendation about, you know, process, an ad hoc committee would have no authority. I mean, the point of the ad hoc committee would just be to create, you know, more of a working group context, to have, you know, a discussion, then to work through things to bring back as a recommendation to the full commission.
And that would make me feel very comfortable. I mean, and I would prefer that. I mean, in my mind, that's what I would prefer to have happen. This is just communication. If something comes of it, then yes, of course, it will be brought back into the open process.
Do you envision an on-call meeting or schedule as needed, or how?
I think we almost have to schedule it simply because otherwise, who knows when it's going to happen. Things like that, in my opinion, tend to slip so badly that soon you get to 6 months and nobody's bothered to find anything. But, you know, if it turns out that, you know, the members of the commission don't have anything to talk about, I think we could figure that out and just cancel the meeting. But I think we do need to schedule them, yes. Okay, Chairman.
Give you one caution on that, which is that, I mean, under the Brown Act, once you set up like a regularly scheduled meeting appointed by the commission, you now have a Brown Act committee. So if it's like a standing committee on procedure, that is an option, actually, but then it becomes its own. It's sort of like the Board of Supervisors has committees on budget or capital projects or forward committee, that kind of thing. Or alternatively, it's, you know, kind of a short-term, limited committee composed only of less than a majority of the commissioners who are tackling like one specific thing to come back to the commission.
Well, can you explain to us, for those of us who don't remember the Brown Act, what the implications of that would be? Say we were to go forward on an idea like the Board of Supervisors has. What are the implications of that?
So then what that is it would be a committee. Your agenda would be posted 72 hours in advance. You'd be limited to speaking to what's on the agenda. The agenda would have to be notify the public, in essence, what would be the topic of conversation and allow public testimony, and it would be held in a publicly accessible place, you know, that kind of thing.
I would say that would be...
If there was a thing...
That's not what
you had more, I mean, so you had more in mind the short-term sort of working
group.
Just a working group with a very limited.
Brown Act sooner or later.
Well, I understand.
Nothing else. So an ad hoc committee, if it's going to be worth a hoot, has got to have some room to operate and make some recommendations.
Well, and being limited to a pre-published agenda, I think, is the issue that would bother. I mean, that I think would short-circuit some of the good that we could do, because then who knows? Then you'd have to project exactly what all those issues are, and you're only limited to the things you put down on a piece of paper, and that just doesn't sound like the way I want to go.
Do we want to consider this thing and come back with some more thoughts? Do we want to set an agenda item to appoint an ad hoc committee for this purpose? If we figure out what the purpose is.
Chairman?
Commissioner Mendez.
Why can't we just have meetings like we're having it right now? Why do we need it ad hoc?
I didn't hear you.
Why can't we just have meetings like we're having right now? After the planning commission session, whatever. Why can't we just all kick back right now and have a meeting like we're having right now? Why do we have to have an ad hoc committee? I don't get it.
Any objection, folks?
Well, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, well, of course, I've been listening both sides of the argument, but we have to be careful, obviously. Transparency, like our county council said, we have to be very careful what we discuss, and the public has to be involved. Even though there are good intentions, we're not a private company. We're a government agency, and we have to be very careful. The idea is good. Get some direction through the plan. I'm pretty sure they can. You work within the confines of your office, and sometimes you don't see the public as much as we do. Because we need our input on that too. But they have an ad hoc committee I think more than anything else will tie our hands. I think I have to agree with Commissioner Mendez on this setting would probably be the best way to do it. We were still open to the public, and they can still have input. And any issues that might come up, we can discuss it at this type of setting that we have now.
I have no problem with that, but I'd like to ask County Council on how we do that, because if it's on, what do we do, agendized discussion of, and then just do it quarterly? And can it be free floating, or?
Yes. I mean, it depends how you agendize it, but it would be in your discretion to put on the agenda, for example, whatever the concern is, but timelines for processing applications, or seek an overview of whatever it is you're interested in knowing, like whether it's, say, general plan implementation or processing of applications, or for example, Commissioner Deal asked for information about consumptive use. So now that's the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District view on that, regulations, and so now that's on the agenda. And so that kind of thing, whatever your concern is, and articulating it, and could put it on the agenda, and we could have a discussion like we're having now.
But it would be limited to that issue, wouldn't it?
Yes, for that agenda item. But it depends on how you articulate the issue. So if it's very broad, there's a balance between, making it broad enough to be able to have an open discussion, but clear enough to notify the public what it is that's under consideration.
But could we involve other issues besides that one? That's my question. Can we go off subject?
See, you have to stay on the subject of the agenda, but it's how the agenda is articulated.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Deal.
I'm thinking carefully, and it's not an easy answer. It's not, we don't want to sound glib. I like this last direction. I think it would be possible to articulate a discussion of, can we have a discussion about processing and understand how the planning department is managing processing given the challenges before them. So we could I think we could have a discussion pretty broadly. I'm not sure that really addresses what Commissioner Getzelman is hoping to do, but it's certainly very clean in terms of being something where we can all weigh in, and anyone with a particular concern could too.
Well, I only want to facilitate communication. If this does it, then that would be perfectly okay with me. I'm concerned, as I have stated now a couple of times, that we'd be limited to whatever is on the agenda, and if that item, if I've got an item that someone called me about that is a burning issue and I can't bring it up because I'm limited to whatever's on the agenda, then I would not find that to be an adequate substitute for doing it the other way. But if the commission thinks that we can do it that way, the only thing I would hope for is that it would be put on the agenda on a regular basis, perhaps quarterly, to begin with, so that we don't just let it slide. That's my concern, is that the communication part would just continue to be put off. So if we can accomplish that, then I'd be perfectly okay. My bottom line is communication. If that would accomplish it, then that'd be great.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Deal.
Thank you. Yes, and I would hold up we had a similar, although not the same, issue with how we were going to use the LUACs. And we crafted an ongoing agenda item for the land use advisory committees to allow people to come in for a preliminary conversation on whatever they chose to bring, and that is agendized in every LUAC meeting plan. It's a preliminary no-fault conversation that you can have with your LUAC as you're thinking about a project. It doesn't say what project, and it doesn't have any decision attached to it whatsoever. It's not binding. But we did find a way to articulate that what we're asking for is for the public to come early in the process, and we don't necessarily know what applications are going to come from it, but it's just an opportunity for communication. So maybe some sort of a crafting like that would help us get through.
So would the commission like me then to work with county council to come up with something around that idea and bring it back to y'all? Is that what you'd like me to do?
And can the chief of planning be a part of that, or?
Everybody can be part of it. Bring everyone you want, Jackie.
No.
Just let me handle it, okay?
Yeah.
How about, Molly, do you have any words on this issue that you...
Yeah, Molly, you want to say anything?
Come on up here and give us a short.
Yeah, short.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I appreciate this discussion. I mean, this kind of open, constructive discussion, I and my clients support entirely. There are a lot of problems with the planning processes. There are a huge number of problems. They're decades old. Jacqueline has inherited a very difficult situation and not helped by the fact that the director of the RMA has eliminated the director position, so she's now in a position, chief of planning, which has less authority. So I say as much as we can do to help her. I really like the way Commissioner Getzelman described it as help the Planning Commission do the job of the planning, help the planning department do the job of the planning department. There's a lot I think that we can help with. I'm happy to be part, I would like to be part of the process. I had concerns about ad hoc because it tends to be sort of out of the public eye, and I think it can help to have representation from the public with the goal of let's have better communication, better processes, let's all be part of that, and I'm happy to offer that. And I think starting perhaps with what the Commission has now come to, which is this open session, it's a great start. Let's see how it works. If it works, great. I'd be happy to be part of it. I hope that was brief enough. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Yeah, that's true. We can, whatever we do, we can undo if it doesn't work. So where do we go from here? What direction are we going to aim staff in?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I understood Mr. Getzelman to be offering to work with staff to bring us an agenda item that we might add quarterly or more often if necessary to the department report. We can have a discussion like this to achieve the goals that he is so ably articulated.
Yeah, thank you. One suggestion that just struck me is that if there are burning issues that members of the public have, including the lawyer class out there, maybe they, quarterly would be great, and I think that's wonderful. But if there's a burning issue that they think need to be addressed, maybe they should just call the chairman and have him agendize whatever. If we come up with wording that we can put this on the agenda and we do it quarterly, if we happen to have an issue that just needs to be done, maybe the public would be, through us, maybe could, well, I don't know, maybe county council is shaking their head at my suggestion. But if we had a piece that we could throw into the agenda at any time that would allow us to have this open discussion about that subject, I think that's a good thing too. And I think it should go through the chairman of the commission, and if he's made aware that there's this issue that needs to be dealt with, then we throw it into the next available meeting and then we discuss it. And I think that would give us some flexibility too. Otherwise, we do it quarterly and just catch up on stuff. So thank you, Commissioner Deal.
Sounds good.
Chair Rochester, if I can ask the question, are there specific issues that we want to begin to just list of concern that we would put on the agenda that we would agendize as we're moving forward? Like, I don't know, processes for, I think an example was used, permit processing of discretionary applications, adequate liaisons to the Land Use Advisory Committee. I'm just throwing ideas out.
I'd rather work with you and the county council and come up with that general wording, and then we'll see where it goes from there. Because I mean, in my mind, I can't answer that question right now.
Okay.
Maybe Commissioner Deal has a thought on that one.
I do, and that is that right now, if you have a pressing issue, if you call the department and say I have a pressing issue and I'd really like to get it on the agenda for discussion, and I'm going to mention it and ask the commission if we can agendize it at commissioners' comments, and if there's a way you can address part of it in the department report for everybody to hear, I would appreciate it. And that generally works really well, about as quickly as anything could. Now, if you have a specific issue, it doesn't support the kind of general discussion that you're talking about, but there is a pathway that works pretty quickly right now for a critical issue that we need to deal with pretty soon. Because we have that department report section where if it's something that's operational, that the chief of planning can come forward and say, this is an issue that's come up and we're going to deal with it, or we're asking for advice, or we're going to put it on the agenda or something.
Yeah, we can do that at every meeting if we want to, but that does limit us to that issue, which is my concern.
But my recollection actually is exactly what Commissioner Deal is saying. There have been times in, thinking of maybe the sign at the barnyard or something where, a commissioner would say at department report, can you please put on the agenda what is the status of such and such, because I'm receiving phone calls from my constituents and I want to hear from planning what's going on. And so, definitely remember that. So, you're right that has been a vehicle to do that in the past.
What about that issue that Jackie underlined earlier, and that is being short-staffed? How come we don't agendize that? Hey, could we hire 4 or 5 more individuals for the planning department? Yeah. Could we agendize that?
The pay structure in Monterey County is such that we have been historically the training ground for other counties to get good people. They come on here, they get trained, and bye-bye. And that's the Board of Supervisors, and they're wringing their hands about money. But that's the fact. That's the fact of life. And they need to be paid more to keep the good ones once they're trained, and quicker. I mean, you've got a structure. You start here and you're here and here, and that's where you're going to end up. But there needs to be some way to make a jump. If you've got a really good employee that you want to keep, or he's gone or she's gone.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it. Anybody else got anything before we adjourn? Then we're adjourned.